Welcome to episode 14 of the Goats and Cookies podcast. I'm your host for today's show, Jesse Barnes, and I'm joined by my fellow patriot, everyone's favorite Kevin. On today's episode, we'll be discussing negative algorithms, the profit of hate. But before we jump in, I'm going to toss it over to Kevin. He's got a little tidbit for us that he would like to share.
Hey everyone. So I'm gonna share. We hit a milestone with Goats and Cookies. We have a new name suggestion, and in a comment that we got, we've never gotten negative comments. We've gotten very few comments. A lot of people will comment on the shorts about the weapons and the rifles, the swords, the gear that I've shared and done little videos of. But this guy, he decided he had something to say. So I'm going to share this little, make sure that's up properly. We have Tanky 2026. Tanky 2026. Let me zoom in on this guy real quick. Let's see this fella. He's a strapping young man who has a Hot Topic necklace and a $2 Walmart wife beater on. But he decided that he was going to comment and say that we should call ourselves dips and shits, which is kind of clever. It sounds like a flavor of Ben and Jerry's ice cream, if you really think about it. But you can see my reply to him here, and I would like to say to Tanky, I do appreciate the comment. I wasn't joking about that. I appreciate you bringing attention to our channel, and I mean it when I say that if you would ever like to come on, we will be more than glad to have you. Just get your P's and Q's in order and have something to say to us. And we would absolutely love to have a debate with you if you'd like to go one on one or if you'd like to challenge all of us. Just let us know. And I don't know if you were serious about who names their kid Rickus, but I mean his name's Rick. Dumbass. Like, come on, man. Like, use your fucking brain, Tanky. So, with that, I would like to say thanks for the comment. Thanks for putting us in other people's algorithms, and thanks for pushing us forward. I appreciate any comments that we can get from anyone. Um, I'm more than happy to answer them, whether they're, educated or, what this is. And just keep it up, everyone. We love you. Thanks.
No worries, man. I really appreciate the comments as well. Uh, you know, any kind of feedback is good feedback. Engagement is kind of like the whole point of this thing, I believe. Um, but now that we've got you learned, let's get you scholarly. All right, we live in a world that's different from which we came. It would seem doom and gloom went from our TV newscast, coveted by so many generations before us, to the screens everyone carries in their pockets when they're not glued to them. In a short span of time, what seemed to be a way to keep up with friends, family, and other communities we associate with has turned as toxic as the block of cheese that is in the back of your refrigerator that you forgot about 6 months ago because you were looking at your phone too much. From community to calamity, let's dive in. All right, so just setting the scene here. Let's look at MySpace, early Facebook, and even early YouTube. These platforms felt genuinely exciting and connective. What was the original promise of social media, and where did that spirit go? Kevin?
You listed them off, but I think I told you before we even started. I was on ICQ back in the 90s. It's ICQ, the letters, but it was supposed to be I seek you. That was the little play on words there. From there, I went to Zanga, well, which was Xanga, and then MySpace, and then Facebook, and then Instagram. I was on Reddit for a really long time, but I kept getting banned for bullying. I guess I'm a little too outspoken. But the thing that all of these have in common is that when they first come out, they feel real, and that's why people are attracted to each and every single one of them. You're just connecting with people that you know, sharing stuff, meeting people. There's no pressure and there's no like constant arguing because everyone's still trying to find their niche. And when they find people, they're excited. It's when they become comfortable, that the arguing starts. But it wasn't perfect ever, but it all felt human. There was a human aspect to it. And then at some point, every single one of these platforms realized that attention can be monetized. And once they flip that switch, everything changes. It becomes not about connecting with people, but about these apps, these websites, these social media platforms just trying to keep you just in and suck you in as long as they possibly can to get every single penny out of you.
Well, now that that's established, let's talk about the art of rage baiting. And when we talk about negative algorithms, like what exactly do we mean, and why are platforms designed now to push anger, fear, and outrage over joy and connection?
I think when a lot of people say negative algorithms, it sounds complicated, but it's not. Instagram, I would say, is probably the most abundant. There's the most abundant rage baiting on there, and whether they're bots, whether they're just people who are trying to get attention, because they're monetized. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people on there that pretend to be characters. They pretend that they're living horrible lives. There's people who pretend to abuse children. Like, I mean, it's crazy just to get views. But they know that that anger keeps people engaged longer than anything else. And if it makes you mad, they're more likely to comment. They're going to share it with people. They're going to argue in the replies, and they're going to keep coming back, whether they want to or not. They're stuck. The system, the algorithm, whatever you want to call it, it just learns. It learns that, it learns who you are and it gives you more of it. Not because it cares about content, but because it cares about your time and the monetization of it.
Great point, Kevin. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Uh, which kind of brings us to our next point. Facebook's early motto was literally connecting the world. At what point did connecting the world become less profitable than dividing it? At what point did the platform engineers figure that out? And in your opinion, like when did the executives decide to exploit it?
There's always been division, and people know how to embrace it, whether they're politicians, corporations. Um, they always want to use it for their advantage. I would say politics is the biggest um, perpetuator of division because they benefit from it so profoundly. But for as far as social media goes, I would say the moment that everything shifted was when they realized people arguing is a lot more valuable than people agreeing. Connecting with one another, meeting people, it's all cool, but that conflict is what keeps people coming back. I think we've all had internet arguments where we read something and we get heated about it. I know I did this on Reddit all the time, and for the next 3, 4 hours, every 2 seconds, I'm checking to see if they replied, checking to see if they replied, checking to see if they replied. And all of that attention that I was giving was feeding the beast, so to speak. So instead of bringing people together, the system that is, it slowly starts pushing things apart and pushing a narrative that divides people. And because that's what keeps the numbers up and keeps monetizing.
I'd say when Facebook ads really killed MySpace, an ad-free space for most millennials that we all partook in. Um, you kind of mentioned some of the platforms that you were on earlier. I was an early adopter of LiveJournal, which
Mm.
like when we were coming up, journaling was still a thing. It was taught in school, and the group of friends that I had, like we all pretty much had like our composition notebook journal that we could write our feelings in. But this gave a platform where we could uh, do that online and then have our friends interact. But neither of those platforms that or aforementioned had ads on them at
Mm.
all.
Yeah.
So like there was no real way to monetize it. So they just kind of went the way of the dodo uh, when it comes down to it, because Facebook was just more profitable. Once they started um, being able to make money off of it, and with that money, you know, they improved their systems, the algorithm. It just wasn't, what it initially started out to be. It was this whole nother thing. Um,
Mm.
and I will say there, you're talking about interacting online with people. I'm in still on Facebook. I probably shouldn't be, but I have a lot of communities that I'm a part of, and in particular, like motorcycle communities, because that's one of my passions is motorbikes. I've got 12 motorcycles. I got zero kids, so I can do that. I got two Harleys, about seven Yamaha classics from 1970 something to, there we go. All right. 1978 to 1988 Yamahas. I've got two 1983 Honda VF 750s. One's a Sabre, one's an Interceptor.
I had an 85
So
Magna, man. That's the closest thing I've ever had to what you have.
yeah, those Magnas, it's the same platform of those two last bikes that I had mentioned.
Hmm.
It's just a different engine positioning. The well, not for the Sabre, but the um, for the Interceptor, the engine was tilted 15 degrees forward, and
Hmm.
it had different gearing to run as a sports bike, and it dominated the sport bike scene for a long time. I say all that to say this: I'm on these motorcycle communities, and then there's always this fucking Joe that random dude from nowhere, fucking Arkansas, who's got something smart to say, and I'm like, hey, we're here as a community to learn about the things that we love and encourage others to do the same. So if you want to be a fucking dick, take it somewhere else, bro, because
Yeah.
this is not the place. And I mean, as negative as that sounds, like it received a lot of positive feedback from other people in that group. And that's just one instance that I'm talking about. Um, to where people are abusing that because they just get too comfortable, I think, in today's world of social media, to where they just, instead of being helpful and empathetic and community minded like the groups were intended to be in the first place, that they've got something fucking smart to say, and like, bro, you're not being helpful, you know.
That what the reason I was attracted to Reddit like I was is because the anonymity that came along with it. I remember it's not really social media, but it kind of is. Post Secret. Do you remember that whole thing? People would they would write on the back of a postcard with no return address a secret, like a deep, dark secret from their life, and send it to this address, and the guy would post them. It was really cool. Like it was neat to read these things, and that anonymity kind of attracted me to Reddit because no one knows who you are. I ended up doxing myself fairly hard on every single Reddit account that I ever had, because I would get banned and then make another and banned and make another, and that goes against community rules, but I didn't really care. And I think that anonymity that I'm talking about, it promoted an honesty in people. They weren't looking to argue because of likes and views. They were looking to argue because they could speak their mind and say their own truth, you know. I mean, and as corny as that sounds, it's really important to be able to say what you actually think without the fear of judgment of your peers, your job, with your name and your face next to it. There's a certain honesty that breeds, and I really appreciated it. Now Reddit, if you're scrolling through, unless you have a paid account, every third post that you see is an ad. You know what I mean? And it builds off of your algorithm, your anonymous algorithm that you have there. If you mention your other credentials, your other social media accounts, it will actually research them and bring them into the fold and combine algorithms. It's fucking crazy and it's fucking scary. And that's why I didn't restart it. I was really well known in the USMC subreddit. Everyone there knew me. I talked to everyone constantly because I was in for 10 and a half years. You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying. Like you were did 16, right? Like, 10 and a half's a long fucking time. That's a long time to be in the Marine Corps. And I had a lot of deployments, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of experience to share with those guys. And I really miss it a lot of times, but what I don't miss is the boldness of some person who's very obviously never been a Marine, and they come and start pushing their political views on me, telling me that I'm wrong, like Tanky here. I mean, like I have his comments still pulled up from where I shared the screen, and like they'll say something like, "Oh, you should change it to dips and shits," without actually contributing to the conversation. Like I want a solid point. I want intelligent conversation, not just some fucking quip that you think is gonna dig at me and piss me off. Like I could care less about this fucking corny looking dude. Like I said, with this hot topic little necklace, he's so cute. But I miss the anonymity, but I understand what you were saying about Facebook and being in those communities because I was in a lot of them too. Um, whether it was for cars, whether it was for my business, because I got a lot of customers throughout social media. But these days, I only have Instagram, and it's completely private. I have my family on there, and that's really it. Just a couple friends, couple family members, um, my wife, and that's it, man. And it's because of this algorithm that we're talking about. It's because of this division, this anger. I comment every now and then on something and argue with people, but I know I'm just feeding the beast, so I try not to.
Yeah, definitely understand that. Which brings us to the next point in our topic is the business of outrage. Um, Algorithms don't have values. They just optimize whatever metric they're given.
Hmm.
So when engagement became the only metric that mattered, was, in your opinion, a hate-fueled internet basically inevitable?
Absolutely, especially once it's monetized. I mean, a system built around profit is always going to go in this direction. Like any system built for profit is always going to be hate fueled. There's going to be jealousy, there's going to be anger, there's going to be spite, there's going to be people who think the other side doesn't deserve whatever they're benefiting from. And it's because nothing in that setup rewards calmness, thoughtfulness, balanced ideals and content. You know what I mean? It rewards whatever gives the strongest reaction, and most of the time that's not something positive.
Well, I mean,
Except for cat videos. Cat videos always positive.
I've always cats, raccoons, and dogs. You know what I mean? Like the voiceovers with dogs, like begging for cheese. Like this bitch is not gonna give me that, give me her cheese. Like those are the videos I look for these days to kind of like balance out the negative, um, I guess the negativeness of the algorithm.
Hmm.
Uh, and and with that, like I noticed, I don't know, it was probably I didn't notice until more recently, but once they started like pushing these updates, and I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, especially during COVID, when people had a lot of fucking time on their hands, is really when they switched a lot of it up. And I'm like, I'm seeing a whole lot of just whatever's being fucking pushed on me. I used to be able just to scroll through and see nothing but my friends' content, so I
Hmm.
can engage with my friends, my actual community, instead of this unknown online community that has an agenda.
Yeah.
Um, so there's an old adage that says, "Follow the money," meaning if you want to know who's behind something, particularly in business or politics, you do just that. Follow the money. How does a like, a share, or even an angry comment translate into actual revenue for these companies?
I would say it comes down to time. The longer you're on the app, the more the ads see you, or the more ads you see, sorry. I have my nice little horchata buzz balls, so I'm all of a sudden dyslexic. But the more ads you see, the more money they're gonna make. And you know what I was saying about Reddit, it's like post ad, post ad. Facebook's the opposite. It's ad post, ad post, ad post. You know what I mean? The
Yep.
more ads you see, the more money they make. And as a business owner, I've seen it firsthand. The way they smother my business site with opportunities to pay a little bit of money and smother people's, Facebook feeds. But everything is it's all designed to hold your attention and your reactions, your likes, your comments, even arguing with strangers like Tanky here is doing. That's what keeps it moving. Somebody is making money off of it every single time.
Yeah, great point. Um, which kind of leads us into our next question. And I have been personally guilty of uh, doing this, and I've tried my damn best to maintain my journalistic principles and ethics when I engage or share anything whatsoever. If I can't verify it, then I typically don't share it. Uh, but misinformation and conspiracy content consistently outperform factual content and engagement metrics across the board. So if a platform knows that and does nothing, is that negligence or is it just the product?
It is by definition disinformation. It's on purpose. Um, it's at a certain point you can't say it's an accident. You know what I mean? Like if you know that misinformation is going to spread faster, get more clicks, and keep people engaged, and you don't fix that, yeah, it starts to look like it's part of the product. And it's absolutely monetization of disinformation. They're doing it on purpose. They know that misinformation isn't going to get the hits. They know that information isn't going to get the hits. They know that disinformation will, and it becomes part of their system, part of their algorithm, part of their product, and it keeps people infuriated. How many Instagram reels do you see where you click on it and you look at you watch this ridiculous reel and then you go to the comments and you start to read and it's AI slop, AI slop, AI slop, AI slop. Every single one of those people saying, "Hey, this is just made up AI crap." They're all like I keep saying, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but they're all feeding the beast, you know? Like I mean, everyone fucking knows that it's AI, guys. Come on. We all know that it's false. We all know that it's made up and it's just meant to engage. And they are taking part in that engagement. They are the engagement. And that's that's all it is. It's part of the product that they are buying.
Yeah, I will say that with especially some of this stuff that involves uh, Israel and Palestine, you and I kind of touched on this a little bit before the show. Um, it, a lot of it is like I know for a fact like this is fucking AI,
Mhm.
like because I was in media and you said 16 years earlier. I served in the Marine Corps 12 years, 8 months.
Okay.
So um but still not chump change
Mm-mm.
as far as it comes to service, but also spending that amount of time working in mass communications to battle misinformation, but also create it for the US government. You know what I mean? Like, because that's exactly what public affairs, public relations for the US military does
They're
is to
propagandists, yeah.
is to spin the narrative in favor of the US government is what they call American interest, which really we all fucking know comes down to corporate interest because none of this shit, especially that's happened over the past 25 years, has any benefit to the American populace. It's only fucking taken money out of our wallets, added taxes uh, to our paychecks, and it has destabilized the working class in favor of money.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, talking about in intent. Recently, the KVM versus Meta verdict in March 2026, a California jury found Meta and YouTube liable for intentionally engineering their platforms to addict a child, and awarded $6 million in damages to that individual. Uh, what makes this verdict a landmark moment? And yeah, I would really like to hear your point of view on this one, Kevin.
So this case, it really does matter, versus all of the others. I mean, because there's 1,000 of these a fucking day that never go anywhere. But this one matters because it breaks the whole "we are just a tool" argument. The jury, they looked at it and said, no, that's bullshit. This was built for addiction. This was built to keep someone hooked, you know? And once you admit something is designed that way, you're talking about responsibility and not just coincidence. You're talking about culpability and not just happenstance. You're talking about purpose, and not just, that individual responsibility. You're talking about it being designed to take over a human's life. I mean, that how rare and few and far between between are those verdicts, where we actually hold corporations, or any kind of platform like this, accountable. It just never happens.
No, you're not wrong at all. And this is one of those things that brings us back to a number of other like bad policies that
Hmm.
allow corporations to get away with murder and exploitation, like Citizens United,
Yep.
that that embolden them to do that because they don't have to see the firsthand effects of their actions. And if they want to be considered people, then they should be held accountable to the same standard that the rest of us are.
Yes. Agreed.
Um, which leads us right into our next question. According to NPR, an internal meta document shown at trial included one where executives described wanting to bring in kids as tweens, uh, and data showing that 11-year-olds are 4 times more likely to return to Instagram than competing apps, despite the platform having a minimal age of 13. Now, what does that say to you about corporate intent?
This reminds me of back in the 90s, early O's, I can't remember exactly when it was, with the Joe Camel argument. You remember the Joe Camel argument? Yeah. That's exactly where my mind went.
It
As
was
and
so
that
cool, man.
that set a precedent, man. It really did. When you see companies talking about bringing kids bringing kids in younger and tracking how often they come back. That is not random. That is not random. If they have these studies to present, they've done it. It's not a study, it's a fucking strategy. You know what I'm saying? The fact that they're focusing on kids at all tells you that they're going after people who are, they're easier to hook and harder to pull away. We all know the vulnerability of kids. I mean, we watch Chris Hansen and we never think that that's Instagram. You know what I mean? We see all of these guys on YouTube going around and beating up pedos that they trick into meeting them at Walmart, but we never think that's Facebook. Yeah, that's exactly what the fuck it is. It's strategy.
100% agree with you on that. Um, and the sad part is like people they just don't do their research. They just take particularly mainstream media, um, news, which is technically classified as entertainment, so they can't be held
Mm,
legally liable for any disinformation that they put out there that may cause harm. But when you look at the U.S. Census Bureau's um, sentencing data, we're talking about crime. When crimes are committed in America, like all of that is all that data is collected and published on their website. And damn near when it comes to child exploitation in particular, 80% of all those who are charged and convicted, and that's an important word, convicted, which means you were found by a jury of your peers to be guilty and culpable in these crimes. Damn near, I want to say it's 80%. It's like 77%. 6 years ago it was 60, but now with the way that the internet is going, those numbers have risen. Sentencing data, white males are at a rate of 80% nearly being charged for crimes against essay crimes against children. Um, Now the data on what gender those children are, it's unclear, but the fact of the matter is it's data that particularly this administration has tried to suppress
mm.
and reframe, but that doesn't change the fact of the matter that like they're in your church pews, they're in your community gardens, they're
Yep.
wherever you gather, your community Facebook groups, like they are there, and they're hunting your children because they are predators.
Absolutely. They absolutely are, and there's no denying it at this point. I can't imagine how many pervs out there, how many deviants, how many uh predators see each and every new platform, social media platform as a resource. Every single time one comes out, that's a resource for them. It happened with ICQ, it happened with AOL, it happened with Zanga, it happened with MySpace, Facebook, Reddit, Instagram. It's happened with every single one of them.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So moving on, um, it's still kind of in the same ballpark, but we're going to talk about children, mental health, and radicalization. So next question for you is the KGM versus Meta case centered on anxiety, body dysmorphia, and suicidal thoughts in a girl who started using YouTube and the like Facebook platforms at a very early age. YouTube at 6 years old, and she was on the Facebook platform or Meta's platform uh, as soon as she was able to be. Um, by their metric 13, which there's no real uh, way to tell like when she actually joined, because I don't think that was in the court documents. But uh, here or there, how does the mental health crisis in young people connect to the broader profit of hate model, in your opinion?
I'll start by saying that their setting of an age is so arbitrary. When I was 13, 14, 15, used to go to, sorry, everyone. I used to go to porn sites, and it would say, "Are you 18?" And it's as easy as clicking yes. Yeah, I mean, that's it. They know what they're doing, and there is a connection here, whether people want to admit it or not. Stuff that makes people feel insecure or anxious or even angry, like we've been pointing out, it tends to keep them engaged longer. So if no one's sitting there saying let's hurt people, even if no one's saying let's hurt people, the system is still rewarding content that does exactly that. If there's even if they're not saying let's make this person feel bad about who they are, the system still rewards content that does exactly that. Even if No one's sitting there saying, let's make this person feel bad about who they are, what their ethnicity is, what their nationality is, what color their skin is, how much they weigh. The system still rewards content that does exactly that.
Absolutely. So kind of segueing into um, our next question here. Uh, we've watched social media play a measurable role in political polarization, to the point where there is no more uh, discernment or discourse between people. It's us against them.
Mm.
Um, that along with the teen mental health crisis, and even real world violence that we've seen play out because of radicalization from online content. Like, at what point does we're just a platform stop being a legal defense and start being a moral failure?
I mean, they can only say that for so long. KGM versus Meta verdict that proves it. They can only say we're just a platform for so long before it really just comes around and bites them in the ass. And I wish it happened more often than it does. But at some point, when you're influencing how like millions of people, millions and millions of people think and react every day, that's power, and they embrace that power. Sadly. They deny that they embrace it, but they absolutely do. And if you have that kind of power, you can't just step back and pretend you're neutral. You just you just can't.
Yeah, I think that they embrace it in their boardrooms, and
Yeah.
it's not a publicized thing. Um, it's no different than sitting in the skiff or like a combatant command meeting with the general planning an operation, and you hear the dehumanization of other human beings based off of their race, religion, sex, creed, color, fucking doesn't matter.
Hmm.
So it just kind of all feeds into the same, uh, well, moral failure
Yeah.
on their part. But from the military perspective, they do it for a reason, to dehumanize like other human beings, to make it easier for young men who don't even have their frontal lobe fully developed to be able to hate someone that they don't even know, even though
Yeah.
they have a mother just like you do, they've got children just like you do, um, and they bleed just like you do. In particular in Afghanistan and Iraq, from conversations that I've had with veterans that served in Iraq, the hundreds and hundreds of friends that I have that served in Iraq, and my experience in Afghanistan, along with other hundreds of Marines that I know that served in Afghanistan, like I saw it firsthand and actively participated in the propaganda and dehumanization of someone just trying to defend their fucking country. Do I agree with their religious perspective? No, not necessarily. It's in Afghanistan, we still see it's a very hard right, uh, patriarchal society where women don't have rights. But the way I see it is, neither do fucking women in this country when you're taking away their right to choose.
Yeah.
Um, Even though that might not be something that like I necessarily agree with in certain aspects, but it is a health choice that has nothing to do with a man and or his decision. So how the fuck are we any different? So you start to look at it like that from that perspective, it kind of like brings you back to reality that we're just human beings that are easily manipulated by fucking hate rhetoric, and it's easier to do online because you don't necessarily have to engage with those human beings. Where a lot of my perspective started to change personally is I I didn't know this guy from online. I met a Palestinian at work one day, and dude turned out to be one of my best friends in the fucking world. And he gave me the Palestinian perspective on him not being able to visit his mother's village that she was forced away from in the 1948 Nakba. You
Mhm.
know, the catastrophe in which Israel like ethnically cleansed large swaths of, modern day Israel, occupied Palestine. So I look at that and go, oh fuck, man, like I've been aiding and abetting this kind of behavior my entire career
Yeah.
without looking at it. I went into a mosque just because I had so many questions. And you know what I saw in that mosque? And this is like here in Chattanooga, the Islamic Center of Greater Chattanooga. Uh, I saw, still separate because it's a patriarchal fucking society, in religion, just like Judaism and Christianity, in their own certain degrees. Women over here, men over here, but all the men I saw from Philippines, Indonesia, Eritrea, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Like I sat down and had meals with these people during Ramadan a few years ago, and it completely changed my perspective on what I was indoctrinated to think Muslim is.
Hmm.
And and a lot of that rhetoric was reverberated online through my work and the work of many other people that work in the US government that, we all know is controlled by a Zionist narrative.
Yeah. Two things I have to say on that. One is slightly unrelated to the topic, but I brought it up before we started recording, is that Christianity and Islam have more in common than any other religions. Yeah, I mean, I don't think most Christians realize that Muslims recognize Jesus as a prophet and a great one at that. I don't think that they understand that respect. They just know what they've been told by, as you said, a Zionist propagandist network who wants to control our thoughts, wants to control our tax dollars. And hey, I don't. If I end up dead, I didn't kill myself. I'm just going to tell everyone that right
Yeah,
now.
nor did I.
But all of this, it's just like I said about the kids, um, and their strategy against them. None of it's random. It is all strategy. Everything about this is strategy. It will never be anything otherwise. They know what's going on. They know what's in our minds. They know what we look at. They know what we don't look at. They know what we block. They know what we hate. They know what we love. They know everything about us. They know whether we're cat or dog people. They know at what time we take poops because that's the time we sit there and look at Instagram the most and we just doom scroll. Yep. They know everything about us and it's all strategy. And it somewhat radicalizes people.
From being a culinary arts student and and worker. Sanitize your phones, people. Like sanitize your phones. I'm just gonna say that. But I mean, Kevin hit the nail right on top of the head. Um, so our next question, kind of brings us back around to radicalization pipelines. Um, and to the point we saw last night that whether this is a false flag, a staged event, or was a legitimate attack on this administration's staff that like MSNBC is reporting, uh, there was a perceived assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So what I've already seen online is this guy is a Muslim radical, like jihadist, who is hell bent on like exterminating this, I guess, we call it fucking white Christian nationalist movement that's happening in this country, from a man that really doesn't even fucking believe in God, nor do I think any of his administration does, in what we would consider decent people in the Judaic faiths to be, you know. Um, and this kind of leads back to a little bit of the conspiracy. I'm just going to preface this and then I'm going to ask the question is like, I can't verify this for sure, but there's a photo floating around of this guy who, apparently this was on one of his social media pages. He wasn't a Muslim. He was wearing in one of his photos an IDF shirt, an Israeli Defense Force shirt. So when it first happened, the first thing in my mind, where I can confirm it or not, is here nor there, is false flag. You know what I mean? So if this guy's wearing, and if we can verify that was actually wearing an IDF shirt, that blows their fucking narrative out of the water. But um, back to the point at hand. Uh, with radicalization pipelines, where algorithms walk users from mild content to extremist content in literally a matter of hours, depending on your engagement. This is all well documented. Why haven't platforms been held criminally liable for that progression, in your opinion?
Huh. So I would say the short answer is that the law hasn't caught up to the power that they have. These platforms, they have this power that's never existed before, and they've been really good at protecting themselves inside that gap. And the system wasn't built for the type of power that they have. Most of the laws, I think, they're flexing a lot of free speech laws and journalistic and media laws, and most of those laws around that speech and media have come from a time when these social media platforms did not exist. Um, I think another part is they have influence, these companies are some of the most powerful on the planet. They have so much fucking money. Um, uh, the Facebook founder, he went from making a platform where a bunch of college students bought weed from each other to being a billionaire. I mean, he has money, he has lawyers, he has lobbyists, and they're shaping those rules, the laws that would actually prosecute them. And then there's a problem with the entire design of the platform. Like it's hard to prove intent at such a large scale. They can say, or they don't even have to say we don't want to harm people. They just have to say what's the word I've been using? We're optimizing engagement. You know what I mean? If
Yeah,
if the outcome is addiction, division, or people harming one another, they can argue that that wasn't the goal, and they have every right to do so. The I don't know. I think from my perspective, this really where the system shows its limits. They found what they can and cannot do within the United States. They found what is constitutional and what isn't. Because if something like this is clearly causing harm, but it's still legal because it's profitable and technically protected, then I would say the issue isn't the companies, it's the system that allows it. We need to revamp our laws. We need to undo projects like Citizens United. We need to take a lot of the money out of the lawmaking. We need to fix this. Um, we can hold them accountable, but we have to hold ourselves accountable too. We are just as guilty. I hate to say that because I fucking hate social media and I hate these platforms, and I do believe that they should be held accountable, and they are responsible for their own actions, but we are also. That's what the Constitution is for. It's to protect us as individual citizens And I think that there's a lot more to read into on that, that we are individual citizens and we are responsible for our own actions and our own addictions and our own hate and the perpetuation of that.
Well, I think to caveat off of that last part of your statement is um, people might be able to begin to understand the addiction aspect of it and the hate aspect of it and the manipulation aspect of it if they had um, a healthcare system that gave a fuck about them
Yeah.
and they were able to actually like sit down with a therapist and talk about what's going on in their head and get a professional opinion about no, well, I think it is this from, like, I don't know, a doctor telling you like you're going through this right now based off of, the DSM-5 or whatever fucking metric they choose to use. And then people begin to understand so they can hold themselves accountable. But when you don't know that you are an addict, then it's really hard to do anything about your addiction.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and the next thing here is like, where do we go from here? You touched on a lot of it in that last statement you made. But if a jury can hold Meta liable for addicting one child with a significant like sum of money ordered in damages, what would it take to hold an entire industry liable for what it's done to a generation? Is it legislation, litigation, or something else, the most powerful tool that we have, you
Yeah,
know?
I would say unity. Cases like the one previously stated, they show that these companies aren't untouchable. They're not invincible against litigation. I would also say though that the real change isn't going to come from a lawsuit or the creation of new laws. We've all seen that come and go time and time again for different subjects, especially like gun control in America. You know, they can create all these laws. You know, school shootings haven't gone down. The
They've gone
enforce
up.
Yeah, you know, and the enforcement hasn't gone down or hasn't gone up. It's gone down because of how frivolous it all seems. I think any real change is going to come from people waking up and seeing how this works and pushing back. Um, as long as profit is the priority within these platforms, nothing is going to change. And it's funny that the division that they promote is I mean, it is what keeps it from falling. You know, the reason I said unity is because that's the only thing that can keep them from promoting the shit that they promote, changing us the way they change us and influencing us the way they do. Unity is the only thing that's going to hold them accountable for their actions and their just grave injustices they've done to this world. And they know that. And that's why they promote division. It's not solely for profit. While I mean that is like a big factor in all of it. It's because they know that that division is what's keeping them alive.
Yeah, and it kind of just makes me think about you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
Uh, and they bet like the poly market, like they bet on the division. So I was at the watering hole yesterday, and that guy that I previously talked to you guys about, I don't know, about 2 or 3 episodes ago, being an armchair quarterback, not really being tuned into the global happenings. We had a conversation. We hadn't talked in about 2 months because like we had pissed one another off, and like I just told him you need to fucking educate yourself. Otherwise, we're just not going to have conversations anymore. And um, he he sat there and kind of rambled on, and all in a sense we made up, but like he dropped the N bomb, like he used the N word, and I had to explain to him, a man born in 1961, mind you, of like, hey, please don't use that. word because it's dehumanizing. He's like, well, I don't even know where it came from. I was like, well, it came from your ancestors enslaving, like, and dehumanizing, like, the Afro population that was forcibly brought from fucking Africa to here to serve as three-quarters of a human being and sweat and toil for white nationalist profit. So like, if someone born in 1961 doesn't understand where any of these hateful slurs and rhetoric comes from, like, and they just kind of perpetuate that mentality online, like, it's a hard battle for the rest of us, but especially so when there's not a willingness to sit down and talk. Fortunately, like, he is a good man at heart, but like, he's got a lot of things to unlearn, just like I did, because I grew up in Southeast Alabama and I was raised by men of his generation and their fathers,
Mm.
and they dehumanized, Black Americans and the former slave population and blame them for the lack of fucking generational wealth that wasn't passed to them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like, it's just, it's a lot of work that's got to be done, but they have to be willing to have a conversation about it. And very, very few people of that generation are.
yeah,
I think that we'll move in the right direction um, very soon as they start to fucking die off.
yeah. That's the only thing that's
Because
gonna fix this. Yeah,
because
unfortunately.
with Generation X, they're a little bit, we don't give a fuck, and millennials are very much more empathetic, and even more so with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. So the change is going to come, but it has to come with conversation, uh, empathy, and care for your fellow human.
Mm.
And I just don't think that we're going to see that through any kind of metric from social media companies uh, to help perpetuate a healing of a generation until or unless we affect their money. And
Yeah,
once we affect their money, kind of like all these warehouses getting burnt to fuck down, like, eventually an insurance company is going, okay, so you're paying these people not enough to live. Now you're a higher insurance risk because you don't give a basic, living wage to your employees. So it's going to be actions like that and turning over Citizens United and various other shit laws that protect the corporations from any kind of liability
absolutely.
for us to be able to move forward, really. Um, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah. I would say, kind of building off what you just said, that if these platforms only profit when people are angry, divided, glued to our screens while pooping, like, then we need to be honest about what we're dealing with, because that means the problem is not people using these platforms incorrectly. It means people are using them properly. It means the system, the platforms are working exactly how they're supposed to. They reward outrage, they feed division, they profit off people getting locked in. The question isn't why are people like this? The question needs to be why was it built this way in the first place? If these systems only work when people are angry, divided, and stuck, we need to call it what it is. It's not connection, it's not community. It's it's a machine that runs on attention and feeds on reaction. And if that's what it takes for those platforms to survive, then the problem was never the people. It's what that machine, those platforms were built to do.
I watched a clip about um, from Marine Greg Plattner, who's running for a seat in Congress in the state of Maine.
Mhm.
And he actually this wasn't specifically about social media, but like it very much ties into it because those corporations are the same corporations that are lobbying for their lack of liability in Congress. And he said these institutions, whether it be social media, the tax code or whatever, like that they've lobbied for, they're operating exactly as they are intended to and have been manipulated for the past 50 years to benefit their corporate profits over human suffering.
Hmm.
So like that was something that I thought was very profound and in short, um, like has an effect on how we move forward. We have to remove their ability to influence legislation to a point where there is minimal like humanistic harm and damage done uh, with intent. Obviously some things are just, they're going to happen. Like industry is industry, but that's why we regulations that are getting dismantled, with OSHA and, regulatory bodies just like OSHA to minimize the impact on the human condition, uh, so we can live the dream that we were promised of peace and prosperity, uh, aka the American dream, which is not what the majority of the country is doing. 70% of the country is lower working middle class, and
Hmm.
we're barely surviving
Yeah.
because of these institutions. So that's about all I got to say about that. I appreciate your listening. Um, well, if you've made it this far, congratulations. We appreciate you sticking around. Be sure to weigh in down in the comments and like, share, subscribe. Be sure to smash that notification bell. Stay up to date on our future episodes. This is the Goats and Cookies podcast. Signing off.